Welcome to the Boom Bap Kingdom. Yo, peace and welcome to the Boom Bap Kingdom. We're here and we're chilling. A lot of companies with hardware samplers have released firmware updates this spring. And I was doing my usual search on the web pages for the samplers that I own to see if any of them had firmware updates. And we know Teenage Engineering with the KO2, they dropped a major update for the KO2. Isla dropped a major update for the S2400. And I'm looking and I came across the Sonicware webpage because I have a Lo-Fi 12 XT and I was just curious to see if they had a firmware update available. So as I'm on the Sonicware webpage, I click on the Lo-Fi 12 XT. I found a message, a disclaimer of sorts on their webpage that reads as follows, and I'm just going to read it from the page, and I'll probably post it here or here somewhere while I'm reading it so you guys can follow along. What it says is, important notice for USA customers. Due to new U.S. customs regulations, a 145% duty will apply to China-made products, including this item. This $399 item will incur over $578 in additional import charges starting next month. We recommend ordering within this month to avoid the new duties. Wow. So I thought this was insane. And why this is truly, truly bothering me is A, as you guys know, I live in the States. B, 99% of the electronics produced in the world consist of parts made from China, or they're manufactured completely in China. All right, we got to be honest here. So this is going to affect not only Sonicware, but every other piece of hardware you can imagine, from computers to phones to everything. And most of these vendors who make samplers, hardware samplers, keyboard synthesizers, etc., most of this stuff, even if it's like a compressor, a reverb, outboard analog gear, interfaces, most of these things are made in China. They're assembled in China, or they contain parts coming from China. So what that means is the prices are going to shoot through the roof. And either you and I are going to have to pay the cost, or some of these companies may end up going out of business, which would be a shame. So this bothers me because it affects the culture, right? The culture of beat making, production, regardless of your genre. I don't care if you're doing hip hop, boom bap, trap, drill, if you're doing EDM, jungle, whatever you're doing, this affects all of us, because if you were looking at buying something new this summer, it's going to be so expensive. If you're in the States, it's going to really affect us over here. I really didn't know how to take that. Kudos to Sonicware for posting that information, because I was looking at other things. I wanted to get the WoW Machine turntable device so I could cut and scratch. It's portable, it's digital, but again, it's a Chinese company. Tariffs are going to be through the roof for these things. We're paying double what the value of the product is we're trying to buy. When you look at units that are predominantly made in the States with parts that are procured from the States, we get into astronomical pricing. And I'm not throwing shots at anybody, right? Because these companies, they place a value on their products. Their products cost X amount of money to produce and manufacture. And not only are they putting a value on the hardware, they're putting a value on the firmware, what they believe these things are worth in the grand scheme, in the landscape of all of these other machines that exist. So what comes to mind is the Rossum SP1200 reissue, a $4,000 device that is completely made here in the States in California. Think of Behringer, who a few months back tossed around the idea of making an SP1200 clone, and they claimed they could do it for $500, $600. We already know that now that's not going to happen until these tariffs are over and done with. It would probably be 2, 3 times that amount. But we know because of Chinese parts that are typically cheaper than anywhere else, that's what makes things less expensive, is the fact that the parts are cheaper, labor costs are cheaper. I don't want to get into a geopolitical conversation, but the politics that are occurring in the world right now are really affecting guys like you, ladies like you, and guys like me, right? We're being affected now. So you're going to start to see this more and more, where Akai, Roland, all these guys who are getting parts from China, Isla, heavily produced with Chinese parts. These prices are going to start to go through the roof. They're probably going to end up pausing production, would be my guess. And if you look right now, a lot of the prices are dropping. I think you'll see price drops because companies want to get rid of hardware so they can get an influx of cash, so they can stay afloat. Because in economies like this, where inflation is high, manufacturing is high, these taxes are going to be crazy. There's no way that they can really push that cost off onto educated Americans. And by educated, what I mean is you understand that if you buy from a company that's producing a piece of equipment that has predominantly Chinese parts in it, you're going to pay the price, for that. And then if you purchase a piece of gear that's solely made in China, right? The company is based out of China, everything. Like the WoW machine, for instance, is a great example. You're going to pay, through the nose for that. Now, the interesting thing is Sonicware is based out of Japan, but because the parts are coming from China, their stuff's probably manufactured in China. That's what's forcing the cost to go up, because the tariffs between the US and China. So I thought this was a very interesting thing because of the way it's going to affect producers and beat makers in the US. And I'm wondering what you guys in the US and even around the world, what you guys are thinking about these tariffs against these countries. The likelihood is none of this stuff would be produced in places like America. It would just be too expensive. I can't see it happening. Hence $4,000 SP1200s versus $400 Lo-Fi 12 XTs. There's I don't see how it could ever happen. I don't know what the political strategy is over time, but I really do hope that we can get to a place where these tariffs don't exist anymore and we can just get back to buying the gear that we want at affordable prices and make dope music. So with that, I'm going to ask you guys to get in those comments. Let me know what you think about these tariffs, how you think they may affect production and beat making and equipment going forward. BBK salute. Peace and be safe.